folks, hello. Very good morning from a beautiful, gloriously sunny Dublin. I hope you're all very well. Delighted to have you joining this morning, whether that's live on Zoom, whether that's watching the recording back in your own time, or indeed whether it's listening into our podcast. Delighted to have you with me this morning. My name is Rob Magee. I'm the CEO at Ingenio. We have two businesses focused exclusively on the tech, software and SaaS space. One is a recruiter where we're working for clients in that tech, SaaS and software space. And the second is Ingenio Learning, which is an e-learning business. We've built a course to help people like you get hired by tech, software and SaaS organizations. I'm delighted, as I said, to have you with me here this morning. And we are finishing off a really successful and heavily engaged series that we've been running over the course of March, which is all around helping you in the interview situation and in the interview environment. Today, we're going to be talking about asking the right questions. So that is you asking the right questions in an interview of your interviewer. So as you've seen, these are the sessions that we've run so far over the course of March. This is the fifth in the series, and next month we're going to be moving on to a different topic, and I'll talk about that at the end. If you want to get information on those previous, or want to have a listen back or a watch of those previous sessions that we've run, all of those recordings are up on our YouTube site. So in terms of just a bit of a reset, folks, what I want to do is we're talking about the interview as a process. There are 4 key sections to an interview that we've been talking about over the course of the last 4 or 5 weeks. And what I want to get you to tune into today is I'm talking about the Q&A section. So section 3 there, it's called two-way Q&A. And these are the questions that you are going to be asking, that you must and have to ask of your interviewer. Okay, but it's really, really important that we set the scene around the structure of an interview before we dive deep into this piece. Okay, I have done a huge amount of work over the last probably 18 months with our clients in the recruitment business to determine what the number one attribute is that our clients are looking for, and they're looking to see people demonstrate in an interview. And clearly there are lots of role specific attributes that people need to go and see. So if you're in sales, you know, if you're in project management, if you're in engineering, if you're in finance, so there's a whole heap of role specific attributes that you need to have and that an interviewer is looking to see. But the attribute, the personal attribute that scores highest on most clients' wish lists is curiosity. Okay, and that is, you know, hopefully that's nothing new to you. But if you think about when someone is actually conducting an interview, what they're looking for and what they will be marking you against or taking notes against, and then reflecting and making decisions on after the interview, is looking out for curiosity as a trait. Okay, if you ask no questions at all in your interview, if you ask no questions at all, you cannot demonstrate curiosity, and that is really, really important. That is, you know, that's a really, I want to make that a very strong impacting statement. If you ask no questions in your interviewer, you will display in your interview, I should say, you will display no curiosity at all. Okay, so if you don't ask a good question, or indeed if you don't ask any questions, you're goosed straight away. Okay, that's the first thing. Organizations, so again, if I think about our clients, and hopefully, you know, what most people today are tuned in to learn about. If you think about technology and software organizations, clearly the market is very, very good for those types of organizations at the moment, and they are all wanting to grow and scale. Okay. Um, Organizations that want to grow and scale need curious people, and the reason for that is that they want to do things differently and or better. So that's really important. Okay. How do you give off curiosity as a personal attribute? Well, look, the number one rule for you here today is that you have to ask what I call positive, curious questions. Okay, positive, curious questions. So when it comes to your time to ask questions in the interview, you need to be asking positive, curious ones. Okay. And I'm going to give you an example of what some of those positive, curious questions are in a minute or two. Um, but when you ask a positive, curious question, it's really, really interesting that the physical reactions, for the most part, unless your interviewer is made of stone, um, the physical reactions to a positive, curious question are typically reasonably common. Okay. One of the first things that you get is you get a smile. Okay. Because it's positive. The second thing that you get is you get someone, and again, this is the great thing about interviewing on Zoom versus, let's say, for example, over the phone, is you get the opportunity to see someone maybe sit back a little and maybe look up or look down as they're smiling, because the question that you've asked is a little challenging. Okay. It's not something that's going to necessarily roll off their tongue. They have to really kind of dig deep into their memory bank, and then kind of pull out the reaction and the response. Okay. You will see that these questions, they're not personal in the sense of you're not asking them, anything, private or guarded about them, but you are asking questions that is effectively going to be giving off some emotions, right? So you can see that when you ask positive, curious questions, there usually is always some form of physical reaction or physical response, that is a good one. Okay. And look, the last thing I want to say on that is that when you ask positive, curious questions, what you are doing is I'm not a psychologist, right? But there is clear psychology connected to asking these good, meaningful, positive, curious questions. And that is that you are connecting yourself with that positive reaction or positive emotion that your interviewer is effectively going to tell you about. And what that does is that binds you and the interviewer, or that binds you or your peer group, or you and the HR group a little closer together than you would be were you not to ask that question. Okay. So that's really, really important. Again, I don't want to get too sciencey on it, but when you ask a good question, the reaction and response is always, it's always typically the same, and you can watch for that. Okay. You're absolutely able to watch out for that. And then clearly, as I said, there's a psychology piece to it. So let's give you an example or a couple of examples about what a positive and curious question looks like. Okay. So if you think about it, again, I'm going to talk about technology and software organizations for a second. Clearly, every single one of those organizations sells either a piece of software, a piece of hardware, or a service, or indeed all of the three. Okay. So a technology business is predicated, its fundamentals are on effectively developing something that they sell to someone else. And so the lifeblood of that technology organization is clients, or our clients, and revenue. And what I want you to do is I really want you to get in, and this, again, This doesn't matter whether you're interviewing for an engineering role or something in finance or something in product or something in design. It doesn't matter. What I want you to do is ask the interviewer, regardless of their role, tell us about your favorite client and why are they your favorite client. And what I'm trying to get you to think about here is that individual will tell you about a particular client for a particular reason that is personal to them. Okay. So let's say, for example, if it was someone in sales, it might well be the client that was the hardest to get over the line, or maybe the biggest revenue deal, or perhaps maybe a client that they pinched off one of their competitors. Okay. If you're interviewing in the marketing side of things, you may well be asking someone to tell you about their favorite client because maybe that client was acquired through an outbound lead gen marketing campaign or program that individual from marketing was responsible for delivering the piece of work that actually attracted the client. Perhaps if you're in engineering, you may well get some insight and experience as to, we were working with an unbelievably demanding client who wanted X, Y, and Z in their product life cycle. And we had to move heaven and earth to go and deliver and execute upon whatever product or tech or engineering strategy they had to go and do. So again, if you think about it, what that does is the answer to that question, number one, tells you a little bit about their customer or their client. Number two, it tells you a little bit about why that particular one is important to that individual. And this could be very, very different from the stuff that you would see on their client's page or their case study page on their website. And it's different for everyone. So I think that's a really great one to start off on. Okay. The next question is, what is the one thing that you are most proud of? Now, clearly this is in relation to work, not your personal life, but perhaps the two are connected. Okay. And what I really like about that proud question is that is definitely not a question that individual will be asked by the vast majority of people who interview with them on that particular day. So immediately, if you think about it, if someone was to ask me, what am I most proud about here at Ingenio? There's probably 10 or 15 things, that I would immediately try and kind of, think about. And maybe what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my memory bank and I'm going to pick out the one that maybe is most resonant or most recent or most relevant to the conversation that I'm having. But you see straight away, it's not an answer that I'm going to be able to, or sorry, it's not a question that I'm going to be able to answer immediately, which again evokes that positive, curious response piece. So, and again, what that does, that is probably, this is probably the most personal of these positive and curious questions, where it really gives you an insight into the individual that you're interviewing for, and it allows them to maybe show off a little bit of their character and a little bit of their emotion and maybe how they tick. And I think that's, again, that's really important in an interview, because again, I go back to this, I'm physically making this kind of connection. And I think that's really, really important in an interview. Okay. The next one is who's the most successful person in your team and why? And again, think about the psychology here for a second. So clearly you're interviewing for a role, and you're interviewing for a role because either you're replacing someone or the team is growing or whatever the case may be. And the objective of asking this question is that you want to try and replicate yourself against the perceived most successful individual in the team. And I think, the answer to this type of question is, who's the most successful person in your team and why? And the answer might be something like, well, Rob Magee is one of the sales guys who works in my team, and Rob is most successful because he is driven, he's ambitious, he's very focused on his targets. He is purely focused on new business client acquisition. He's obsessed about delivering to targets and quota. He's got a very strong kind of personal organization set of skills, etc., etc., etc. And and if you get that type of answer to that question, okay, what you're allowing the client to basically go and do, or the interviewer, I should say, what you're allowing them to go and do is basically you are getting them to describe what the ideal persona is. And that might not necessarily be captured in a job description. Okay. So if you can listen and take on as much of that information about Rob Magee and why he is most so successful, and you're able to then connect yourself with a couple of those attributes, it is unbelievably powerful, has a huge impact, and yeah, really, really provides a kind of very strong connection piece. Okay. And the last one for me is a really interesting one. I think that what you're trying to do with this particular question is you're trying to get an insight and a feel for maybe what the culture looks like in that organization. What's your favorite thing about working here? And I think, again, you'll probably get a little bit of an insight into the individual, but you're probably going to get a really strong insight into, what are the things that makes this organization tick? What are their beliefs? What are their principles and foundations? Do they actually do what they say they're doing on the website? Do they actually do what they want to go and do in their mission statement? So I think, again, the question is quite broad. It's a little vague, and that's the reason. What I want to try and do, what I would want to try and do by asking this question is I would really want to try and get like a relatively broad answer from this one, and then maybe narrow in on a particular piece that you can then tune into. Okay. Just before I finish, okay, it is really, really important that you think about the potential answers that you're going to get from the questions that you are going to ask. And then how do you spin your reactions or responses off the back of those answers? I don't know if anyone tuned in today is into snooker, but I guess a professional snooker player is thinking, between 5 and 8 shots ahead of the shot that they're hitting right now. So what I really want to try and get you thinking about is, if you think about asking a question, you're going to get an answer and a response. And what I want you to almost be thinking about as you're asking the question, clearly you need to be listening, is what are you going to go and say? Or what is maybe your follow-on question or your reaction or your response going to be to that question? So that's positive and curious questions. I hope, folks, that really resonates with you, and that is, that you tune in and put in as much prep to the questions that you're going to ask alongside the questions that you will be asked. It's really, really important. Okay. Just wrapping up, folks. Obviously, I've spoken a lot about the course that we have built and developed. It is called Ingenio Learning, and basically that course, in its most simple foundation and fundamentals, it is an online course built specifically for people who want to get hired by or in the technology industry. Okay. On the slide there, you'll see all the key things that you get by taking the course. 20 modules right across the full spectrum of kind of career coaching, so helping you get really started, really slick and very, very precise in terms of your proposition. Loads about the tech industry, loads about the work that you need to go and do, like we're doing here, before you even make an application and part of the application process, and then all the way through the interview process, right through to getting hired. The thing that I would really tune into there, it's the practicals, the worksheets and the exercises, the stuff that we have learned, the stuff that we see from clients, the stuff that we are engaging with from a candidate and client perspective, it's all those really strong, valuable pieces that are basically in the course that, again, probably adds the most amount of value there. Our gift to anyone on the course today, we have a 65% off promo. It's exclusive for people who are on the webinar. Places available, and that pricing expires this Friday. So look, if you're on the fence, or if you're considering, or whatever the case may be, give Lisa or Alex a shout, and we'd be happy to ask any questions on that one. But I think, you know, certainly from my own perspective, working with clients over the last, clients like you guys, by the way, over the last 6-9 months, we are seeing and hearing that to be a really, really, a really good price to get you into and get you some of the experience that maybe you're lacking right now. A great question, by the way. Last week someone asked me was kind of the spread on this one. But look, 90% of the people who are taking our course get hired by tech and software companies in a 90-day period. So look, there is the outcome, there is the output, there is the deliverable that you can expect by taking the course. The one thing that we've launched over the last 6 weeks, we have a specific one-to-one coaching session, which is a session with me or one of the guys in my team, and that session is entirely bespoke around maybe an event that you might have coming up. It might be an interview. I've got a session later on today with someone who is fine-tuning the CV ahead of going for a final interview session from a panel perspective, which they're a little bit nervous and concerned about. So again, the one-to-one session is again, it's a little unique, it's a little bespoke, but there's some details there on that.